Hi, you've clicked on to today's tropical tidbit for Wednesday over here in the Atlantic. Still not a whole lot to talk about over here, fairly quiet overall. The major buildup of heat visible on this image is over here south of Central America, and this is looking like some of the models are trying to develop this into Tropical Storm Beatrice over here for the Eastern Pacific with time over the next several days as it moves west-northwest. So this area of energy will be bundled and taken off this way likely over the next few days. A little bit getting over here into the southwest Caribbean, but probably nothing to worry about over here. The upper ridge is too far south to allow any kind of extension in here to really try to get going. There's a tropical wave now moving south of Puerto Rico this morning. Very well defined signature on moisture profile, and it's got scattered showers with it, and it's starting to move westward through the Caribbean here on its journey. And you can see, or maybe you can't, I'm not sure, these cirrus clouds arcing around clockwise here out of the west-northwest directly to the west of the wave. This is a convergent or confluent area aloft just west of the wave, which means that air is sinking around it, and thus convection is not too heavy with this, and it will be having a hard time to fire a lot of convection as it moves through here. But it will be interesting to see what this looks like by the time it gets into this area, because if we look at the GFS day 3, you can see what has happened at 200 millibars. There's an upper trough digging down towards the Yucatan. You can see the upper airflow is now anticyclonic over the western and central Caribbean, and this trough is diving down. Now if we look at where the NHC has our tropical wave by 72 hours, here it is just west of Jamaica, east of Central America over here in the western Caribbean, and you can see that if it's lined up right here, this is actually a nice place for a tropical wave to be, because directly east of Tut-like upper troughs, they really like to fire convection, and so this might look kind of nice in here by the time it gets into the far western Caribbean. And if we go out to day 5 on the GFS, you can see this trough starts to lift out over here, and then this ridging starts to build in the wake of it where this tropical wave is moving into. So it's going to be marginally favorable for this, it looks like, by the time it gets towards the western Caribbean and Central America. Probably won't be able to do much, but it'll be interesting to see what it looks like, given that it'll be in a marginally favorable upper divergent environment, and this wave has shown the capability to fire convection when it needs to, or when the pattern allows it to. So we'll have to see what that looks like. It'll likely move fast in here and then stall near the Yucatan and move very slowly this way, as there will be a strong deep layer ridge right here and then a trough trying to pull on it. It probably won't be able to move northeast. That would be nice for Florida, but it'll probably just stay here and move very slowly westward. Now if we go farther out to the feature that I've been talking about for a few days now, by day 10, here we are, nice big upper ridge, excuse me, showing up at 200 millibars over here over the southern Gulf of Mexico and the Yucatan Peninsula area. This is an invasion of the monsoon trough northward, where we get a bulge of moisture out of the eastern Pacific, and I've been talking about this possibility when the MJO comes back by the last week of June. We have to watch for this, and what this pattern argues for is if you see such a nice outflow jet sitting in here, you're looking for something to be going on right here northwest of the Yucatan or in the Bay of Campeche. If we look down at the surface, look at what's going on. We have low pressure over here, not directly centered under the ridge, but it's under it, and you can see the precipitation showing up here with the surface flow coming up out of the southeast, and eventually the GFS brings it up a little bit farther towards Texas and Louisiana and kind of meanders it around in the western Gulf through day 15, not doing a whole lot with it, as the steering patterns will not be well defined, at least according to the model, by that time. If we look at the European 500 millibar heights and anomalies days 8 through 10, you can see a lot of blocking over here over and east of Alaska, and this argues for short waves, moving underneath it. You can see a couple of them here, and as they propagate eastward, they're going to be trying to break down this ridge over Texas in the southern United States, and you can kind of see how the ridge is weaker in here, and most of the runs have had a very defined break between the southwest US ridge and the Atlantic ridge out here, and this kind of a break would make sense if we have tropical mischief going on down here, because the atmosphere will be trying to get that heat outward, poleward. And if we have a break here, if we do indeed have tropical mischief sitting down here, it could potentially bring moisture upward to the central or western Gulf Coast and perhaps be a drought buster, or at least a relief of some kind, because the pattern would favor a large moisture stream coming into the Gulf Coast for quite a while. That's assuming there's something down here. We have to get something down here first for that to be a real possibility, and then see if this break truly develops. But it looks like it may. So there is some hope for some rain on the horizon here before month's end, which would be really nice for these folks. And one more item, which I have also been talking about for a few days now, is this tropical wave that came off of Africa. You can see it right here. There's a big bulge in the intertropical convergence zone here, as this brings a lot of moisture with it. There's also a lot of dry air ahead of it. Our first major African dry air outbreak is coming out ahead of this system in here. This will be propagating west across the entire Atlantic over the next 10 days. We can see it and track it on the GFS ensemble mean precipitation. Here it is day 2. You can see it right here. If we go out to day 5, you can see it just east of the Antilles Islands. If we go out to day 8, here it is near Hispaniola, and finally if we go to day 10, it's making it into the western Caribbean, and this is that time where you can see the moisture starting to come northward from the eastern Pacific, and there's an upper ridge aloft building over this region. The tropical wave is coming west-northwest into it as low pressure potentially tries to develop in here of monsoonal nature. So if we feed this tropical wave into a monsoonal depression of sorts in here, it could be an ingredient that could allow mischief to happen, and we'll have to see if we can try to get any kind of development out of this pattern. It is possible that all the energy will try to stay bundled to the south in the eastern Pacific, but the model's been fairly consistent with this, and the MJO supports mischief being able to lift north into the western Caribbean or southern Gulf of Mexico. So I believe we will have to watch this pattern closely during the last week of June to see what kind of fun and games can stir up down there, and perhaps bring some rain to folks that really need it in the North Gulf Coast, even if no development occurs in this pattern. So we shall see what happens. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.